Can you hear us?
Hello.
I hear something. Jason.
Can you guys hear me?
There, yeah.
There you
Hey.
are.
Okay, hold on a sec. I'm adjusting my my AirPods are not connecting, so give me 1 sec.
Hate
Sure
that.
thing.
Hate that. I'm just waiting for this BITCH to be done.
Oh, dude. It's gonna be a while.
I know. That's what I am sort of realizing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Loud
There
and
we-
clear.
Better. That's so much better. How you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
Oh, we're surviving.
Yeah. I mean, just
Like everybody else?
just a normal week.
Yeah, totally. Just a totally normal week. We've been up super late every night this week, drinking
Yeah.
heavily,
Yeah, I've
trying to
been
survive it. No.
Sleeping like a baby. Nothing on my mind.
Oh my gosh.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad it's Friday, and yeah, everything's going. Where are you guys at?
I'm in Dallas,
Okay.
and
I'm outside of Boston.
Okay. I am outside of San Francisco, and it's
Oh.
not too bad here. Not too bad.
Nice.
I miss San Francisco so much.
Yeah. How long were you here?
It was a little over 3 years.
That's right.
So-
What ages you were? Where were you at here?
I was at EVB and then Pereira.
That's right.
And I left
Yeah,
Venables last spring.
You left Venables last spring.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
And where are you at? Are you still in? Or where are you guys at now?
I just started at Preacher in Austin this week. But
Got it.
obviously not in
Nice.
Austin yet.
And then I'm in Dallas at the Team One Texas office.
Got it.
So
Got it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right on. And Aisha,
well,
I know Ryan, you're a copywriter because we have hooked up. Aisha, what's your
Art director.
ad role? Art writer. There it is. Got it.
There
Yeah.
it is.
Aisha and I have known each other for almost 10 years now. We met at In Ocean in Southern California. She was a wee little one who was really new to the industry. They kind of just had her as a freelance designer, and so we met there, and I don't know, we just really got along well, and
I stuck
she
to
was
Durs
looking-
like a clam and said, "Tell me everything you know."
I showed her the way, which may have been the wrong way, but she's done amazingly well in her career, and we've just been super tight ever since then. And just a little bit of background on this, Jason. Like at the beginning of quarantine, Aisha and I started offering some free portfolio reviews to some of the kids who had lost internships or were laid off, or were just looking for some advice. And kind of the reoccurring thing that we noticed was while there were a lot of great ideas in the portfolios, there were just a lot of things that were left to be desired in the actual website themselves. And so we just kind of noticed our advice was about, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to put more attention on this part. And as that kind of percolated, we realized, like, you know what, as two people who kind of had to grind it out in this industry, we didn't go to portfolio school. There are a lot of unspoken rules and do's and don'ts of how you put together your portfolio website. And wouldn't it be nice if we could put together a little guidebook for some of these students or young creatives who can't go to portfolio school, or just people who are looking to break into the industry? And what if we could give them some of the advice and rules to make a more level playing field, but really a website portfolio that that can compete with the brand center students and get recruiters' attention. So that's kind of what we've been doing. We've talked to a lot of amazing recruiters. We're starting to talk to CDs now. And then you've been high on our list since we first started about this project, just simply because you've got your finger on the pulse for these books. And so, I think we just want to pick your brain a little bit and hear what you've been noticing, trends, things that kind of immediately stand out to you. What are some of the details that you're instantly like, oh shit, this is a really good book, stuff like that.
That's cool. Well, I'll tip my hat to you guys. What you're doing is a very good thing for creatives. And, I've been doing Modern Copywriter. I started it in 2009. So however long ago. And when I started it, it was because I was looking to recruit a senior copywriter when I was a CD at Target. And I was like, how can I not find a senior copywriter for this position? This position is amazing. And there's a lot of sites out there for art directors, but where's the site that houses amazing copywriter portfolios? And how does that not exist? So I just started throwing them up. And I didn't realize that schools would use it as much as they do. And that turned out to be probably one of the three main uses of the blog. So getting that help, especially for people, like you said, outside of Circus, VCU, Miami Ad School, like the main schools, just regular people trying to put something together. Where do they go? I think putting together a book or something like that to help them is very cool. And so tip my hat to you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's super cool.
We also
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, the wrapper was tough feedback to give too, because I think these kids spend a few years in ad school potentially, or programs, and they hear a lot. I think it's all about the ideas. And then they end up just throwing their book together. And a lot of the times it does look haphazard. It doesn't have much polish. And so I think, like I told Ryan, I've checked up on a lot of books who we've given book reviews to, and many of the changes have not been made.
Yeah.
So we wanted to put together like a definitive, like Colleen DeCourcy says, you need to have a clean nav.
That's awesome. No, I as part of Modern Copywriter, I started doing a lot of people asked me for exactly what you guys are putting together. They were like, could you just go through my site and give me advice on how to make it better? Yeah. And about 5 years into it, I just ran out of time. So I started charging like $150. And the reason I put that $150 up there was not because I wanted to make $150, but it was because it takes me probably like a half hour to 45 minutes to really go through somebody's site, all of their projects, all of that. And then I didn't want to do it by writing stuff down, so I do a 45-minute to 1 hour phone call where I'd go through it all with them. I'm like, if I'm going to invest an hour and a half of my time, I want to make sure you're going to invest your time and your resources in it too. So I started doing these portfolio reviews, and I haven't done a ton of them, but and I'm glad, because they do take a lot of time. But I've done enough of them. I've kind of got it sort of organized in my head as to, okay, when I do a portfolio review, website portfolio review, these are kind of the things that I break out, and this is sort of how I organize myself. So I thought maybe I'd just share that with you guys, like, how do I break down a site and give people feedback from my perspective, on what makes a good site and a not great site.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Let's start there, and then we'll just kind of interject with more questions.
Cool. And just so you know, I got a meeting dropped on my calendar for my time, 8:45. So So I'll scream through. This week has just been nuts because of, as you know. Okay, so I start by telling people, like, when I review their site, I break it down into objective and subjective. And to me, objective is looking at the construction of their site based on what I've learned looking at the construction of the thousands of sites I've looked at over the past 10 years. And to me, what are the best workings, the mechanics of the site and pieces of it. And then the subjective part is the work itself. And me just being one CD among however many are in their life and going like, okay, this is what I think about your work. And to me, that's less valuable. That's, most people, I think, they'll send their book out in waves, right? Like you do a certain amount of work, you get your book to a certain level, and then you'll send it out to 3 to 5 reviewers. You'll get that feedback in. If one person says something, you kind of dismiss it. If 2 or 3 say it, then you start to flag it. If three or more say it, then you're like, okay, that's a theme. I should probably address it. So I'm one of those voices in the subjective part. But for the objective part, I'm like, listen, I have looked at a ton of sites, and I always quickly go through them before I post them. And these are the basic mechanics of it. And this is how your site differs from what I see most people doing. So I'll just throw out like the subjective part and kind of the objective part and leave the subjective part to, just another CD voice.
Yeah.
So excuse me. So I basically break the site down into 4 main chunks. And you guys stop me, anytime in this.
Sure.
The 4 main chunks are the work, an about us, some sort of about us section, some sort of experience section, and then some sort of contact section. And those are kind of the 4 main pieces of a site. And to me, the objective, if you had to put a brief together for a website portfolio, I try to tell people, to me, it's not a library, it's a calling card. Like what you're trying to do is get people to call you, right? Like they're recruiters, as you guys know, they're going to fly through this site in like a minute, like 60 seconds. And your goal is to have just the great work up there, 5, 6 campaigns or whatever it is that are deep enough and that are interesting enough and that make people jealous enough. They're like, okay, they're on the list. And so we got to call them. And then once you're on the list, then you can work with that. But that's the goal. It's not a library to house like, I'm including this one because it got produced, and I'm including this one because it was my first TV, So that for me is the goal. How do you make a really tight, awesome portfolio that gets you the call? So in the work section, to me, it is that like 4 to 6 for kids, you're talking like juniors, right? It's like 4 to 6. And like VCU, you'll see fewer things come out of VCU. They usually have 4 to 6 or 5 or 6 campaigns, but they're super deep. They're really integrated. There's a lot of product ideas in there. There's a lot of like beyond advertising, beyond marketing, beyond print ads. It usually goes into a fully blown out, really deep thing, which I think is really cool. But that is also targeted for a very specific agency, right? Like that's targeted for an ad agency that's looking for integrated campaigns and that type of thing. And then you've got others who are mishmashing stuff together. I think there's like, I've got 3 print ads over here I really like. And then I shot a video, and then I've got a social thing, and then I've got this type of stuff. So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, how do you take that and add other components to it to blow it out a little bit more? So it's not just this mishmash of here's one print ad or one thing, but you really have the idea. And to me, it's like 4 to 6 ideas that other stuff breaks out of. 4 to 6 big campaign ideas that you can see, okay, they had some, epiphany about this product or service or whatever it is, and now they're populating it throughout. Got it. So that's kind of work. And And I can break down within work, like there's very specific, I like to see one little paragraph, like 2 or 3 sentences that are the strategic setup. What's the problem? And not real deep into it, but just very clear. It's almost like on a creative brief. What's the one thing we must communicate, right? It's that 1, 2 or 3 sentence thing that's like, whatever brand it was needed this, I did this, and so we came up with this. And you go, I got it, done, okay. And then you can scroll through and you can check all the stuff out. So I like to see that up the top, not too much. And to me, that's really important. A lot of portfolios get tripped up in that strategic paragraph where they try to be funny. They try to they aren't super clear, especially like student books, on the strategy and on that paragraph. And you go like, okay, that's a great setup. But then you go through the work and you're like, none of this work ladders up to that. Or 3 pieces in this ladder up to that, and none of the rest ladders up to it. It's a completely different thing. So to me, that link between, okay, I can, when they're working for me, I can hand them a brief. This is the strategic paragraph, and they've done a bunch of work that ladders up to it. Got it. Great. That's super key. So I think that's very critical. And a lot of times what I'll tell when I give feedback to people with their portfolio, especially younger people, it'll just be about that paragraph more than it is about the work. I'll be like, you know what, this is actually a pretty decent campaign, but the strategic setup you've got does not match the work. You need to change the strategic. Maybe you started there and then you did a campaign and you went over here. You need to change your strategic setup to match your work. And if you just tweak it, people will go like, oh yeah. And you can fake it, you know, if you're doing a portfolio of spec work and the spec work takes you somewhere else strategically and you're like, that's dynamite, that's what the creative should be. You have the advantage being a student of going back and changing the brief to match your work. So just do it, you know.
I noticed that too when the strategic way in or the insight or whatever is way more compelling than the actual work. But before we move on, so strategic write-up, I imagine some sort of like hero execution before we get into all the other stuff. One thing that we keep talking about when it gets to social, like Facebook or, you know, Twitter or Instagram or whatever, a lot of students, a lot of young creatives struggle with how to display that in a enticing way, right? Like, it's not really enough anymore to just throw up a screenshot. Have you seen any interesting or cool ways that young creatives are showing some of the social stuff?
I don't know. I personally don't mind a screenshot.
Okay.
You know, if it's a GIF, then cool. It can have motion. You know, you could do it in a video format. I'll say like 85-90% of the books I see are Squarespace and Vimeo. The combo of those 2 tools. And I always tell people, you know, at least right now, back in the day, there used to be a ton of different platforms, but Squarespace so has the market just nailed, and especially for copywriters, it's so easy. You know, you just pick a template, throw your stuff up. It's very clean. The nav is usually really easy for people to click through, recruiters just to go really fast. And then Vimeo is very clean. You can control, you know, all the settings on it so much better than YouTube. So those 2 seem to be, to me, the 2 that most people are using. And I like to go very fast through a book, so I don't mind the screenshots or short video clips or GIFs or whatever to display social. But that's just me.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm looking for like, give me the writing and the art direction. Give me the idea and everything else just, you know, get out of the way.
Do you look for certain, you know, what makes a copywriter's book stand out? What makes an art director's book stand out? That kind of extra level. Like, we've actually heard a few things in terms of that write-up, saying, you know, if the copywriter's actual pieces aren't necessarily strong enough, like, use every location you can, including those write-ups, to flex a little bit of your tone. And so Are there things that copywriters and art directors do that you see where you're like, oh, this is really taking it to the, like, this person is talented, and what's the evidence of that usually in books?
So, yeah, that's a great question. For me, for copywriters, and I'm old school, much older than you guys. So I've got an old school way I judge writers. But you could think of, to me, writers on a scale of, over here you've got pure word nerds who are prose copywriters. They aren't ideation people as much. Let's say there's a spectrum, but they love words, and they're really good at taking other people's ideas and crafting the perfect sentence. And they're grammar nerds, they're journalism nerds. They come out of J school, maybe then they go into, Miami school or whatever, or they put their book together. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got some ad school kids who don't know how to write at all. They're copywriters because they have ideas, and they love to have big ideas, and they love collaborating, and they're comedians, and they went to comedy whatever school, and they're really good at that. And what I get really impressed by is somebody who's got both. And when I go through their portfolio, I look at their writing and I say, oh my God, this person loves to write. And you can tell immediately that somebody loves to write by the crafting of words. You can see, like, the grammar is impeccable. There are no grammatical mistakes because they've been sitting with this paragraph of copy for like 3 hours. It's super tight. The idea is the hero. It isn't rhymey. It isn't fluffy. It isn't, it's just very lean and tight. The idea is the hero. And you can tell they spent time writing it, and they had fun writing it. And that comes through in the voice. And they aren't afraid to write a lot, and they aren't afraid to write a little. And you'll go through and you'll see, some long copy thing that they'll just have blown up, and you'll be like, oh my God, look at that. And they obviously had a blast writing this long copy thing. But then you'll see, I don't know, they'll do a social thing that's just a campaign of 3 words that pop off here, and it's really sharp and it's really tight. And, those portfolios are so rare that I'll see a copywriter's portfolio that it shines with both the idea and the words. And you can tell the person's like a craftsman. They're a real writer. And I love that. For me, makes me jealous. I look at that and I'm like, oh man, that person's a great writer. And they've taken that to advertising. To me, a great writer can learn how to be a great journalism writer. They can learn how to be a great TV writer. They can learn how to be a great movie writer. They can learn how to be a great advertising copywriter. Once you're a great writer, it can, same as a designer, a great designer, somebody who has great design skills can learn to apply it in different media or different ways. And seeing a copywriter who's a great writer and has learned to apply that to advertising or marketing is, you can tell as soon as you click it into a site that somebody's got it, and that's their thing. So, and that comes through in every piece. That comes through in that little strategic, going back to, the little strategic write-up. You can tell when somebody's got it, and you click through their pages, and they all have the same voice, and they're all about the same length, and they are all super tight, and they all ladder up to whatever it is, and you're like, this person's going to get a job really quick at White or Droga or wherever, you can see it. So, that to me is the, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Probably too long. Yeah.
Heavy on the writers, light on art directors, but yeah.
Finally, for once.
I design for me is less because I'm not a designer.
Yeah.
I've got designers on my team. I hire a lot of designers. My team right now that I'm CDing is 6 designers, 2 writers. So heavy on design. That for me though is more of I know it when I see it, and because I'm not born out of that. I can't sit down and do design. I can sit down and tell people I don't like it because, but I can't. To me, it's still magical. When a great designer take there's somebody else's words and they put stuff down, it looks beautiful. I'm like, oh, how did you do that? But anyway. And then, so nav is important. Obviously, to me, a site talking about the work. I want to be able to click through the work super fast and go back and forth. And there are a couple of Squarespace templates that I don't like for that reason, where like the name of the project will be hidden until you hover over it, and then it'll surface. So I've got to like explore and go like, okay, where is it? I would much rather have it kicked off to the left in a very easy menu where I can see, okay, these are all the projects. I'm going to click into here, here, here. And I can see very quickly, they've done 3 for Nissan and 2 for whatever. Or let's say they're 2 years in, they've been working at an agency. The agency is primarily a car agency. So half their portfolio is for Toyota. And they've got different projects for Toyota. I can go through those and then I can see what's the spec work. Got it. Okay. I like to see have nav revealed so that I can go through very quickly. I do assume a creative is curating their site for me, best to worst, from first to last. So I expect that first project to be what they think is their best, and the second project to be what they think is their second best, all the way down. Maybe the last one is some sort of kicker that, they think they want to end with. But I would, for the most part, say best to last, because if I've got 1 minute, I'm going to go through it first to last. And as soon as it starts to get weak, I'm going to maybe fall off and go to the next one.
So is that your typical journey? And I ask this more if you're a CD reviewing a book, not as Jason for Modern Copywriter. Like, take us through that 1 minute journey for you. What are you clicking on first and why? Are you going to About Me first? Like, where are you going and why? If you have like 2 minutes.
Yep. First thing I'm doing is About Me. And I'm checking out their About Me page and seeing what they say about themselves. Honestly, number 2 is I'm going to LinkedIn. And I'm looking at their LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to go through LinkedIn.
So do you want those links there? Oh, okay.
To me, I think it's critical on the contact page to have LinkedIn. I think you have to have LinkedIn over there. I think a lot of recruiters actually bookmark people's LinkedIn things under like copywriter, art director, whatever, and that's how they sort of bookmark who they're shortlisting. So to me, that's critical. And then I always tell people also, like, on your contact page, don't put social platforms that you don't want people to go to. If you just launched an Instagram account and you've got 3 months of it, or if you still have your high school party photos, like, don't put your Instagram account on your portfolio, because somebody's going to click over there and go through it,
Yeah.
So, but I think LinkedIn is super critical. And I'll go over there just because for me, that's the quickest way to see what's their experience. Who am I looking at,
Yeah.
And, you can get a lot of information really fast from LinkedIn. Then I'll do About Me. What are they saying about themselves? About Me is, I like 2 tight paragraphs that just tell their story. Like, how did they get to become, and usually creatives have very interesting journeys. Like, I was doing this and then I found this, and this is what interests me. I like, this and this part of it. I don't like when people try to be creative in About Me and do some tricky, especially copywriters. I know it's so hard to write about yourself, but you look in some copywriter About Me things and they're trying to be funny and they're like, I like chocolate chip cookies and my dog. And so it's like, I don't care. Like, I'm not looking for that. Tell me, like, why are you a copywriter? how did you get there? Why do you love words? Why do you love advertising? And what do you hope to do? What do you want to do next? You know, I love social, or I love fashion, or I love, you know, music, and to me, the combination of collaborating with people and music and art and business, to me, is why I love thing. And I've worked on this account and I really liked it in that account, and I'm hoping to do great. Okay, got it. When I'm a CD and I've got a shop with 5 different accounts and this one needs someone, I can instantly go, yeah, this person matches up, and I can put them on my PG&E account or my Toyota account or whatever, and they're going to like it. They're going to get it. Okay. I'm trying to put a band together, and I need to know, what do you play? What kind of artist are you? What kind of, what do you make? What do you love doing? And to me, that about me gives me that snapshot outside of the work, especially if you're young, you haven't had a lot of time to choose to do the work that you're doing. You go to an agency and you're handed, like I said, 5 regional Toyota spots. And you're like, this isn't me. This isn't my art. The about me gives you a chance to tell me what you really want to be doing and where you want to aim your career. And I like that a lot. So to me, that's critical. And like a quick 2-paragraph thing, I would like to see a photo. I think it's important to have a photo in the about me. It doesn't have to be a headshot. It could be anything, but I just like some sort of greeting to know you're not crazy. It could be anything, it could be you and your dog. It could be whatever, but I maybe I'm old school that way. I'd like to see like, hi, I'm nice to meet you, or hi, nice to meet you. Here's some photo representation of me from over the years. And here is 2 paragraphs about my hopes and dreams and how I got here. Yeah. So that for me is about me. Experience it could be LinkedIn. It could be just LinkedIn if you want. But usually recruiters want some sort of PDF printout that they can. So the work experience is some sort of printable thing. They may just ask for it. So you could just link to LinkedIn if you wanted to. Contact. I hate form fields. I tell people never do form fields. Just give me your email address and I'll email you. If you want to give a phone number, you can, but you don't have to. I think just email for me is totally fine. And that's kind of it. To me, like the contact page is super stripped down. I want to see LinkedIn. I want a way to directly contact you through email. About me, we talked about. Experience for me, the most important thing is LinkedIn, and to have that filled out well too. Like, pay attention to your LinkedIn page, and then work, easy to nav, 4 to 6. Cut the fat. Everything's got to be a B+ or better. Yeah.
I have a question.
Oh, you're on mute, Aish.
Oh, shoot. That explains it. I'm eager to ask a question knowing that we are sort of rounding out maybe till you have the next meeting. But you see a lot of books. So neither Ryan and I went to ad school. We're not bitter about it. It's fine. But I personally feel like there's just such a massive, agencies are going to VCU and Miami Ad School and maybe a few others, maybe, but honestly, that's pretty much it. I think that's super messed up. Part of this is to help even the playing field. So what do you see coming out of VCU and even Miami Ad School, but I think maybe a little bit less, that you think in a book gives them that edge, other than just like the fact that they have blown out campaigns, because clearly they're full time and they have the time, but just what is it about those books that the agency world just can't quit?
It is the creative brief for me. It's that they teach people how to read a brief, how to digest a brief, and then how to take that brief and put it into a campaign. And if you think about it from an agency standpoint or a CD standpoint, you know, most projects are the same. You get a strategic planner or an account person fills out a brief. They've got something that a company is paying them to make, right? The company wants them to make this widget or whatever it is. They hand them the brief. A CD wants to be able to take that brief, hand it to a creative team or a writer or art director, and for that person very quickly to be able to look at that, read it, and go, know where to challenge, know where not to challenge, know where from there to be able, they need to do their research and come back, and to be able to create work that answers that brief or answers the assignment in a way that they can sell. And that's the business, you know? So I think ad schools have done a really good job. Take somewhere like VCU, does a really good job of showing students, here's a brief. Now, how do you take that brief and turn it into work that a company can sell? And how do you do it in a way that makes work that's really extraordinary? And that also, you know, every time an agency goes in and presents work to a client, they're not just going, here's the work we think you should run and, you know, you should buy this work. They're also selling themselves as an agency, and they're selling like what, you know, they have to prove why they're in the room. It's very different for in-house. In-house, you don't have to do that. I'm just talking pure ad agency side, right? So they're also looking for that creativity and for a client to go like, oh man, you answered this brief in a way I never would have thought of. And that's why we hired you. So I think schools do a really good job of setting people up, a good school like VCU does, of taking a brief or a strategy, and you know, you see those 4 to 6 campaigns and their students are blowing that brief, that hook, out every possible different way. They're doing it in social, they're doing it in a product, they're doing it on a site, they're doing it in an app, they're like, it's almost like they're working that muscle, and they're going, here's the brief. Now take that brief and execute it in every possible media and every possible whatever. And once they've worked that muscle and they've got that down, you know, those are the students that then go to really strategic shops, like to meet, you know, Wine or Droger or IDEO or whatever, and are able to do that. They've got that mindset. Where you see people who don't go to school, what they're light on, maybe they'll have some funny stuff in their book. They'll have some funny ads, or they might even have good design, but it's just not strategic. It has nothing to do with, you know, a difficult problem to solve. And that to me is the difference. Is you look at a VCU book and you go, they've made a difficult problem to solve, and this person has solved it 100 different ways. And you look at somebody who hasn't gone to school and you're like, they just kind of picked a product and made up a problem that isn't that difficult to solve, and they had fun. Good enough. But, you know, when I get a brief at my agency and I hand it to them and they've got 48 hours to execute and come up with a bunch of stuff, can they do it? Or how much hand holding am I going to have to do to get them from here to there? Because I don't have a lot of time. Mm-hmm. I need them to solve the problem themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's so I want to leave you with enough time for your next meeting, and maybe we can schedule another call next week or something to
I'm gonna cancel that one so that we can just knock it out. Unless you guys, I could probably. Do you think we could use another 20, or how do you feel? You got what?
I mean, I think like if you could just bump it back maybe a little, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Plus, I need the distraction from refreshing Politico, so.
I'm not even looking. I'm not gonna look.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's for me the hard part about people who, you can look at work and say, yeah, that's cool, and you're a good writer and stuff, but how do you teach people the business side of it? How do you teach people the strategic side of it,
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Aish, if you have any questions, go ahead. I was going to ask Jason, what are some of the telltale signs when you land on a portfolio like this? We're in for trouble. This is not, like, you go immediately on their homepage and you're like, this is going to be a rough one. Are there details that you can specifically call out?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I hate getting those too. I'll say, like, when somebody hires me to do a portfolio review, I kind of go, okay, and then I click into their site and I'm hoping it's 80% of the way there, and that I can just talk to them about the last 20%. And I'm hoping they've got great work, and maybe there's easy stuff with their site that we can chat about to tune it up, and that's really fun. The hard part is when you look at it and you go like, oh man, this person doesn't have the writing skills or design skills. And I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I think it's pretty easy to see when you go on someone's site, this person isn't really a great writer, or this person isn't really a great designer. And that is stuff that you just can't fix with a review. It's hard to say to somebody, listen, like, there's grammatical mistakes all through your stuff. These sentences, your headlines kind of don't make sense. Maybe you've got one good headline here, but the other 2 or 3 are just like nonsensical, or I can see what you were trying to do, but it didn't work. You made it rhyme. It doesn't have an idea. It's, those are the most difficult conversations and reviews to have. It's like you need to go to writing school. You've got to figure out how to be a good writer first before you can get into advertising, which is the specific branch of writing. And that one is, I'll be honest with you, like, I don't do that. I don't tell people that. It's too difficult for me. It makes me feel, I would feel like an asshole. So, when I see somebody's book and I'm like, oh man, this is a person who really wants to be, and I've got till 9. I canceled that meeting.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no. I find an excuse to be like, okay, I think maybe you should look at your book in a different way, or maybe you should start over with, strategy. Let's dig into strategy. What is strategy, and what should you be doing to whatever? But that's the most difficult one for me, is it's either talent or they haven't had the practice or whatever it is, but just in basic design or basic art direction or basic writing, they're not there.
Yeah,
that's really hard.
So, but is it things like the thumbnails are shitty, or
Oh yeah, for a site.
Yeah, for like, what are the actual things?
Yeah. So when I tried for Modern Copywriter to put up most people's, if it's medium or higher, I try to not be biased and put up almost everything that comes in. And you can usually find one good thing about somebody's portfolio, and I'll talk about that one good thing. But I actually think what people like about Modern Copywriter is that I do put middle of the road portfolios so that people can judge themselves. If you want to see a really good portfolio, all you have to do is crack open CA or any awards thing and just go to those people's sites and see like the best sites, portfolios in the world. But who cares? Like, you look at those and you get depressed and you're like, I'm never going to be that, right? I think what people actually like are to see, oh, here's like a journeyman copywriter who's had 15 years in the business. They've made a living out of it. And they've got some good stuff. They've got some middle stuff. They've got some stuff that, I don't know. but they've made a living in Raleigh, North Carolina, on the local circuit, and they're doing what they love, and I can do that too. And I think that's what people actually value most about Modern Copywriter and looking at other people's portfolios. So beyond the work, it's stuff that makes the work hard to see. And this is stuff that Squarespace takes care of a lot. But you're right, like the thumbnails, when you see a copywriter's portfolio, there's nothing worse than I can't read it. I can't read it because the copy's so small, or you're making me download a PDF, or you're making me click 5 times and then I can't back click to get out of it. Those, or you've got a video that goes out onto something that's just spinning that I can't see, or whatever it is. Those are the things that I think are the most frustrating, are things that the site makes it difficult for me to quickly view your work. But I'll be honest, like Squarespace, I feel like makes it pretty easy, and Vimeo. So I don't see a lot of Squarespace sites that are super difficult. I see people who tried to use a different platform, and it's difficult. And the first thing I tell them is just this is going to be a pain in the ass weekend for you, but move all your shit over to Squarespace. It's only $70. It's $80 a year. Just do it and bite the bullet and move over. And you don't have to worry about designing it or just pick a template and go,
Yeah. What's funny, those people who are, lost causes is a tough word, but when you go to their books and you're just like, I don't even know the feedback to give because you're so far, honestly, The thing that I tell them is to go to Modern Copywriter and just look at every single book.
That's funny. It is a matter of just go to, whether it's Behance or Modern Copywriter or whatever it is, go find a bunch of portfolios and just see the shit that's out there and see what you're up against. Yeah. And then you'll get in the zone, and I also try to tell people though, those books coming out of ECU, those are people who are going to Wieden or Droga or those. And that's not the majority of people in our industry.
Yeah.
The majority of people in our industry are people in-house or that local copywriter in North Carolina. And you don't have to have the A+. I think our industry is set up to make people feel like they need to win Clios and all this shit. You don't have to do that to have a great career in advertising. You can have a middle of the road book with big hits, with hit every once, maybe once a year. You've got I nailed something, great, But otherwise, I'm doing hardworking stuff that I'm proud of, that does the job and all of that. And for whatever reason, this category or that category doesn't require big brand work. It requires something else that takes my skill, my writing skill or my design skill. And that's also worthy of stuff. And so I also talk to people, it's just say take a deep breath. It doesn't all have to look like VCU. It can also be tailored for something else. And you can have a great creative career. And I think there are also people who want to have kids. They want to have a life. They want to work 9 to 5 very hard, but then they want their weekends and they want their nights and they don't want the agency lifestyle. And you can do that too. There are venues and in-house shops that allow you to do that and build a portfolio for that, for what you want to do. Not everything needs to be VCU, or those type of books, That's a very specific thing.
One thing we heard, at least early on, from a recruiter that I thought was really interesting that you touched on a bit was, and I'm curious to kind of dig into that a little bit more, is sometimes she isn't seeing enough just classical advertising, just good print, good film ideas, good, digital. And I guess I'll ask for copywriters in particular, do you still feel like, even though, campaigns might be blown out, really good headlines is still the kind of creme de la creme for what you need to prove in terms of your copywriting abilities, or is that sort of outdated?
That's a really good question. For me, I don't look at so much as far as media as I do what you just identified, which is different types of writing. I know when I hire a writer, they're going to have to write headlines. They're going to have to write social. They're going to have to write probably product description. And I know at my current place, they're also going to have to manage a lot of copy. They're going to have to be like a curator of a lot of content and be able to move it around in addition. So I look for the writing in there, and I'm like, where is the headline skill? I hired a fantastic writer like 5 years ago who, before I hired him, was a writer for Chronicle Books. And what he did was write gift books for Chronicle Books. And his book titles and chapter titles were perfect headlines, like beautiful headlines. And that to me was like, okay, this guy can write a one-liner to save, like nobody's business. That's not traditional advertising, but it's fantastic headline writing. And it's that I can say an idea in a line, one idea, one line, and do it very quickly. So I think you're right. Like, I want to see the different writing skills. I want to see long copy. I want to see editing. I want to see, headline writing. If I need them to do video, if I need them to do social, I want to see something in there. But it's so rare a print brief comes in anymore.
Right.
I don't need to see print, you know what I mean? I when I see somebody's book come in and it's all print, I'm like, man, there aren't that many print ads out there anymore. And honestly, not that many people are doing traditional TV either.
Yeah.
It's a lot more video and social, and what we're being asked to do is very different than what we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
I mean, I envy portfolio students, or just students in general, because they can focus on those foundational elements like print. And going through some of this, what Aisha just said, that comment of like, we're just not seeing a lot of writing, and I was like, shit, you know what, that's right. And so I went to create a little, like, here's just headlines that I've done. And I realized, like, oh my God, even though I've been doing this for 13 plus years, I actually don't have a shit ton of produced print. And it was kind of a shock to me, like I was scrambling to pull together some print pieces of headlines that I was loving. And so then I audited my site, and I was like, all right, time to start writing some of your site like their headlines and just advertising writing.
Yeah. It is interesting because there aren't print, like, I don't know if I've ever worked on a print brief, similar, because I think actually, what I tell art directors sometimes is like, just design a few nice print ads so they know you can do it. But it is interesting that, like, those headlines, like an idea in a sentence, even though those aren't the briefs you're getting, it's such a quick way to be able to articulate your thinking. And so it's this balance of, like, when I see kids with a lot of digital heavy books, it's like, that's totally valid, but I do think that they're missing a little bit of, like, yeah, but here are my ABCs.
Yep, I agree with you. I mean, back in I sound like I'm 80 years old, but back in the day, there was a lot of outdoor, and outdoor was a very specific thing. The rule for outdoor was 7 words or less. Yeah. And I would get briefs of here's an outdoor campaign. You've got 7 words or less. Go spend 3 days writing 500 headlines. Take your best 50, put them up on the wall, and then you narrow it down, and we'll throw them into, we'll throw 30 of them into very quick boards so you can see what it would look like. And you just worked that muscle. You worked that writing muscle a lot, which is, how do I craft an idea in 7 words or less? That's a very specific thing. It's very hard. I think for writers, radio and outdoor are the two hardest things to do, because radio, you've got no visuals to rely on. It's just your words. And outdoor is like, have an idea in 7 words that's creative, on point, sells something on the brief. You know, it's super difficult. So, yeah.
H, do you have any more questions? Cool. Well, I mean, Jason, thanks for your time. I think one thing, this was awesome, but one thing we've kind of been leaving these with is, if there's a site, a portfolio that is kind of the gold standard for you, or it's just always lived rent-free in your head, if you can send that our way, we would love to kind of see it and dissect it. And even if you want to call out some of the reasons why, like, this portfolio just has always been amazing for these few reasons. We'd love that. But if you don't, that's cool too.
I'll tweak that slightly for you. One thing I tell younger copywriters or designers, a piece of advice that I always give at the end of those reviews that I think people in our industry don't get enough, is to find a champion or a mentor that you look at their career and you look at their work and you go, oh my God, I want to do exactly that. Mm-hmm. If you can find that person, you can call them. Our industry is not that fancy. You can actually call that person and talk to them and say, how did you get there? How did you do what you do? And if you can find that person and aim your career, at least at the beginning, towards their book and what they're doing and hear how they did it, that will give you a huge head start. So for me, it was Janet Champ. And when I was in school, Janet Champ, when I was in college, was a copywriter at Wieden Kennedy who did all the women's Nike stuff.
Yep.
And she totally blew the shit out of how women write for women and how women, or how a company writes about women in athletics. And she did this long form poetry style print ads for Nike women that had pictures of Marilyn Monroe and had pictures of, you know, messy girls going like, did you ever wish you were a boy? And it'd be Sports Illustrated would have these, you know, 3 spreads of poetry that literally the women around me would rip out of magazines and post up on their walls as inspiration. And to me, she revolutionized a category of advertising that I looked at and went, I want to do that. I want to do that for some other piece of advertising. And the best moment of Modern Copywriter for me was when I posted her book and she emailed me and said, that was so cool you posted my book. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, my advertising hero, Janet Champ, emailed me and said it was cool. And, so that for me, more than one book, if I have to look at a career, she was the receptionist at Wieden Kennedy, and she was a poet, and they gave her a chance at being a copywriter. She didn't go to ad school, and she took her poetry to advertising and completely changed the category. And to me, that's freaking amazing.
Yeah. If you let me play is like, I'll just watch that just on the regular.
100%. I totally agree with you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much.
Absolutely. I'm super looking forward to seeing your book. Good luck to you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Cheers.